The story begins with a boy called Errol sitting with his family for lunch. Errol's father feels surprised by how calm his son is, saying he couldn't sleep at all thinking about what hero class he'll get. His mother also exclaims that she's excited, while his older sister feels confident that her brother will outshine all his classmates. Her mother agrees, thinking that her son will attract all the girls with his charm, which makes Errol's sister worry that he'll be taken away from her. However, Errol is more in touch with reality than his family, thinking he'll just turn out to be another average guy. In Errol's world, hero classes are gifts from a higher being granted to youngsters when they turn 10, allowing them to specialize in various skills. Once it's time for the blessing ceremony, all the students gather in school, and a priest begins with the first boy. He puts his hand on the boy's forehead, and the boy quickly sees an image of fire and hammers, confirming that he'll be a blacksmith. The boy runs back to his father, beaming in joy, and the priest starts to work on all the remaining students. Once it's Errol's turn, his sister says that he'll get a special blessing for sure, and he walks up to the priest while his family cheers. People start whispering in envy about Errol, thinking that he'll get advanced classes like his parents, Farah and Leon, who are sword princess and archmage. Once Errol gets close to the priest, he closes his eyes and focuses his mind, but fails to see anything. The priest feels surprised that he doesn't have a blessing and announces that Errol is a rare case of a classless hero. Errol's family instantly loses their excitement, thinking they got totally scammed and that his fate is ruined as a talentless failure. The next day, Errol gets to practicing ordinary swordsmanship. His parents assure him that they won't kick him out of the house. Errol tells them that he's doing fine and just doesn't want to be a freeloader, while his sister promises to keep supporting him. Seeing how concerned his family is, Errol once again reminds them that he has always been practicing swordsmanship with his mother, so he can still be useful despite not having a class. However, he thinks that his mother is an awful teacher because she always blows him away in training with her incredible strength. As he finishes his explanation, Errol's mother feels happy that her son is so wise, while his father thinks that he might actually be able to get a real job. Seeing them all fawn over him, Errol gets sick of his family's attention and leaves to train. As he walks into the training ground, Errol finds two swordsman class students dueling it out with their swords. While fighting, the boys notice Errol and ask what he's doing here without a class. He calmly tells them that he's going to train just like them, but the boys tell him that they're only having fun with their swords since they don't have to train because of their class. Then they offer to show Errol how much skill they have gained from their class and start sparring once again. While watching them fight, Errol notices how smooth their movements are because of the swordsman class and asks them to fight him. One of the boys laughs at his audacity for challenging him without a class, but Errol thinks that he doesn't need one. Feeling insulted, the boy accepts Errol's challenge to teach him a lesson. Before fighting, the boy asks Errol to make sure he still has the protection blessing, which is a temporary shield everyone gains at birth that recharges when the user isn't receiving damage. Errol nods and confirms that he won't lose his life to the boy's powerful attacks and tells him to get ready for the duel. Enraged by his constant taunting, the boy charges at Errol and swings his sword, but he easily parries it to his shock. Then Errol dodges another slash before locking the boy in a parry. The boy's partner thinks he's just having fun and tells him to finish the match, but he tells him that Errol isn't so easy to fight. As they continue trading parries, the boy realizes he can't beat Errol on his own, so he cheats and asks his partner to gang up on him. The other boy jumps at Errol from behind, but he senses the attack and dodges it. Watching the two boys argue with each other, Errol realizes that their class doesn't help the boys with their teamwork, and he swoops in to finish them both off. The boys notice him coming, but suddenly Errol vanishes from their sight before coming under one of them and knocking him clean out with a jaw punch. As his teammate falls, the other boy rushes to attack Errol, but he trips on his own friend, giving Errol the chance to knock him out as well. With both boys on the ground, Errol calmly announces that he won the fight, but they get angry and claim that he attacked them while their guard was down. As they ask Errol for a rematch, he easily agrees. But before it starts, a boy behind them warns the others not to try it, reminding them that they can't make cheap excuses like that if they fail on the battlefield. After the red-haired boy tells them they're a disgrace to all swordsmen, one of the two boys tries talking back to him, but his friend reminds him of the red-haired boy's high status. The redhead then walks up to Errol and asks if he's the son of Sword Princess Farah. When Errol nods, the boy praises him for learning some solid swordsmanship from his mother. However, he reminds Errol that the two swordsmen he took down are just inexperienced children. As he points his sword at him, challenging him to a real fight, the boy declares that he'll prove the real power of the swordsman class, while the two other boys wonder if he's the village security captain Evan's son. The boy confirms his identity, and Errol remembers that his father used to contact his mother to hunt monsters. Errol thinks that the cute boy looks nothing like his father and wonders if he'll also turn into a gruff-looking man. The boy's shoulders start trembling as he praises his father for being a powerful swordsman and wise mentor. He thinks it's unfair that despite his father's great qualities, Errol's mother unfairly stole away his father's title of the village's strongest swordsman. At his jealous words, Errol realizes that the boy is just taking out his frustration on him because he hates his mother, and the redhead feels embarrassed to get called out but asks Errol if he thinks the same. Errol confirms that his mother is the strongest person in their village, but the boy tells him that he inherited the best swordsman talent from his father, so he'll defeat Errol to prove that his family is superior. After calming down, the boy tells Errol that he already became a swordsman a year ago and has been training hard under his father ever since. With his dedicated practice, the boy thinks he has no chance of losing. However, Errol reminds him that he also received guidance from his powerful mother, so he's not going to lose against him. Both boys raise their swords to begin the fight, and the redhead attacks first. Errol parries his attack and strikes back, and they both engage in a fierce battle. Watching them exchange blows, the other two boys feel shocked that Errol is keeping up with the redhead despite being classless. Watching the boy swing his sword, Errol admits that he's much stronger than the other two, but his moves are driven by anger. Errol waits for him to slip up and attacks once he gets an opening. However, the boy unleashes a twin slice skill, which drives Errol back into a wall. The redhead feels surprised that his first slice was blocked, but notices that Errol got injured by the second. Finally losing his calm, Errol asks about the boy's ability, and he explains that it's a swordsman class skill that can't be blocked by someone classless. However, Errol feels determined that he can learn to block it with enough practice, and the redhead praises his resilience. A few days later, Errol's sister watches him snore late in the morning and tries to wake him up with a kiss. He gets up before she can touch him, coldly knocking her away with his head. Errol's sister gets offended and demands an apology kiss as he leaves his room to get breakfast. Their mother smiles and serves breakfast, and the family sits down to eat together. Errol's sister asks him if he's going to train again, and he nods. This angers her, and she tells him to take it easy and let her support him. However, Errol ignores her and gets up to leave, and his sister wonders why he's been going out to train daily ever since he returned home beaten into a pulp. Farah reassures her that Errol will be fine, explaining that they have a secret she doesn't know. She takes her daughter outside and opens a chest full of broken swords, revealing how hard Errol has been training the past few days. While his sister feels surprised, Errol's mother feels happy that her boy got inspired after dueling with other kids. Errol's determination also cheers up his sister, but she still wants to create a world where classless people like him aren't discriminated against. While her mother smiles at her noble goal, meanwhile, in a forest, Errol whacks at a training target on a tree before backing up for an attack. He then unleashes a twin slice just like the redhead and feels satisfied with his power. While Errol thinks getting beaten up by the redhead was worth it, a goblin silently stalks him in some bushes. It jumps out to attack with its club, but Errol turns around and defeats it with a twin slice. While Errol feels happy with his skill's power, a large monster roars behind him. He turns around to report the monster's appearance to village security, but stops after hearing a panicked scream. Finding the scream familiar, Errol turns around thinking that he doesn't have time to call security before that person gets hurt. He grabs his sword's handle and runs into the forest, mentally assuring himself that he'll be fine. Once he gets close to the source, Errol peeks from a bush and finds the redhead with a bloodied arm. Then he notices a giant hobgoblin looming over the boy and wonders why it appeared. Errol then realizes that the redhead was also practicing like him and defeated some wild goblins, which attracted the leading hobgoblin. While the hobgoblin backs the boy into a corner, Errol gets behind it and prepares to launch his attack from the best angle. Errol takes a deep breath to prepare, and the redhead thinks that it's game over for him. The hobgoblin raises his club for the finishing blow, but suddenly Errol cuts it down with a twin slice attack. After the monster falls to the ground, Errol thinks he has finally mastered the technique's footwork. The redhead tries to walk, but he stumbles into Errol's arms. Noticing that the boy lost his protection blessing, Errol asks if he has any holy water to heal his wounds. The boy silently looks at his smashed water bottle on the ground, so Errol offers him his own holy water. After he drinks the water, his wounds disappear, and the redhead feels annoyed by how strong Errol has gotten. Errol notices that his energy has returned, and the boy thanks him for his water before asking again about his powerful skill. Errol calmly reminds him that it's just a twin slice, but the boy asks how he learned it without a class, knowing that ordinary people can't learn special skills. Errol explains that he pushed his training to the limits for this one. The redhead feels confused, so Errol explains that he learned the skill by adjusting to its timing and footwork. Then Errol tells the redhead that he was the most important resource since he helped him understand the skill after beating him up dozens of times with it. While the boy feels overwhelmed by this information, Errol tells him that he's been training the twin slice skill to defeat him in their rematch. Feeling impressed by Errol's dedication, the redhead accepts his rematch challenge. Errol asks him if he's sure, but the boy tells him it's the least he can do after he saved him and healed his wounds. Errol feels surprised that he knows how to repay favors, and the boy feels insulted by his low opinion of him. Soon, both boys get ready with their swords and begin their duel with a twin slice slice at the same time. While feeling shocked that Errol blocked both of the slices, the redhead gets hit by a surprise attack. He wonders what it was, and Errol tells him that he added a third slice. The redhead reminds Errol that it's called twin slice, but Errol explains that because he didn't get a predefined skill from a class, he can mold his technique into whatever he wants. He reveals to the boy that this was his first time successfully using the third strike, which leaves him even more frustrated. The redhead thinks that a swordsman's skill isn't supposed to lose to anyone, so Errol tells him he'll prove it in another match. Both boys raise their swords again, and the redhead calms down, thinking that he has a speed advantage over Errol. As both of them unleash their twin slices, the redhead watches for Errol's third slice. However, the third slice's speed still catches him off guard and knocks him down despite getting blocked. Errol points his sword at the defeated boy and tells him that this result was only to be expected. The redhead asks him why his third strike is so fast, so Errol explains that he learned the trick from him as well. Errol reveals that he controls his first two strikes to be slower and applies all his strength to the third strike to catch the opponent off guard. Feeling completely outclassed, the redhead gnashes his teeth in defeat, and Errol walks away victorious. A few days later, as Errol's family is having dinner, Farah reveals that Evan's son has left to train at Brea. Surprised by this news, Errol asks what Brea is, and his mother explains that it's the City of Swords. She tells him that she used to train at a guild there before her marriage, and Errol feels excited to visit the city and explore his full potential as a classless hero. 5 years later, an older Errol heads out to Brea City on a carriage. While passing a forest, the carriage driver informs everyone that they'll soon reach Brea after climbing a hill. A woman riding the carriage asks her fellow passengers if they're all headed for the same place. A barbarian swordsman responds coldly to her, so she asks why he's so angry. The barbarian points at her trashy outfit, so the girl explains that less clothing is best for her dual swordsman class. Both swordsmen butt heads in anger, and the carriage driver gazes at the offensive power of their advanced classes. He suddenly stops the carriage as a horde of wild orcs appears in front of them and asks the two of them to prove their power. Losing their previous bravado, both swordsmen crap themselves in fear as the orc king stands up. A commoner lady grabs the boy's arm in fear, but he shoves her and runs for his life. As the woman also escapes, the carriage driver decides to flee as well. However, Errol quietly steps up and dashes into the orc horde. As Errol starts ripping the orcs apart, the carriage driver notices his blink dash skill. However, as the orcs surround Errol, the carriage driver thinks that Errol can't escape. Suddenly, Errol spins in a tornado and cuts down all the orcs. Much to everyone's shock, the driver instantly realizes that Errol's blade dance skill is the legendary Sword Princess's signature technique. He wonders how Errol can use this technique since Sword Princess is a female class. In front of the driver, Errol avoids the Orc King's heavy weapon and jumps over his head. He drives his sword straight into the beast's skull, and it lifelessly crumples to the ground. Afterward, Errol returns and asks the driver to take him to Brea. When Errol says he wants to get stronger over there, the driver points out that he's already too overpowered. An excited passenger boy asks Errol about his class, and he stuns everyone by revealing he's completely classless. It turns out that 5 years ago, Errol showed his mother the twin slice skill he learned from the redhead. His mom thought she was dreaming, but Errol explained that he was learning skills even without a class. Then Errol asked her to teach him the Sword Princess skills before he went to Brea for more training. Errol's mom was starstruck by her son's talent and quickly started bragging about him to the rest of the family. Errol's dream ends abruptly as the carriage driver wakes him up in Brea. Errol notices all the swordsmen around him, detecting many advanced swordsmen as well. He asks the carriage driver about his class, but he acts like he's just a normal guy. Errol points out that the carriage driver perfectly understood his swordsman skills, so he must be pretty strong himself. Feeling exposed, the driver explains that he's actually an advanced holy knight, so Errol asks him why he's doing carriage rides. The driver explains that whenever he gets tired of fighting, he takes breaks by taking normal rides. Errol nods, understanding that it's important to take breaks from training as well. Then, the driver advises him to join a sword guild to start out. He reveals that the city holds many swordsmanship tournaments where he can win some good money. As the driver points out that Errol can't participate without a guild membership, he nods and agrees to the plan. Errol feels excited to fight against stronger opponents, but the driver warns him to watch out for some bad guilds out there. Once the driver leaves, Errol turns around and heads into the city. He finds the Calvar's guild recruiting knight swordsmen and a sword guild open to everyone. Suddenly, a girl runs to hug Errol, but falls flat on her face as he avoids her. She wonders how he dodged her without even looking, thinking he's very powerful since he can detect her. While Errol feels confused, the girl asks him if he wants to join a guild. After he nods, the girl quickly begins a sales pitch for her new guild. She shows him the contract, but Errol leaves her without a word. The girl grabs his belt and asks why he's leaving, so Errol tells her she looks too desperate. He thinks that her guild must need new members because it's weak, and the girl tries acting like they're a famous top guild. Errol refuses to get scammed, so the girl introduces herself as Lilia and offers to go on a date with him if he joins. Errol tells her he's not interested, and the girl is left speechless. He thinks she's just like his older sister, acting like hot stuff with a cutting board flat chest. Then he asks Lilia about the biggest guild in Brea, and she gets angered by his disrespect. Sighing to calm down, Lilia tells him that Black Blade is the strongest guild with 8 A-ranked swordsmen. She tells Errol about their location, and he heads over to their large headquarters. A guard approaches him asking what he wants. Errol tells him that he wants to join the guild, so the guard tells him to take a test. Errol follows him and lines up to wait for the test registration. Once it's Errol's turn, the receptionist explains that his guild only accepts advanced classes. When Errol tells him he's classless, the receptionist rudely laughs and tells him to leave. Behind him, the other swordsmen start whispering about him, and Errol asks the receptionist if he can take the test since he's confident in his abilities. However, the receptionist refuses, saying he can't change the rules. Suddenly, the room lights up as some A-ranked swordsmen enter the room, and Errol decides to try his luck elsewhere. He tries visiting other guilds, but all of them refuse him without a second thought. Afterward, Errol feels discouraged since he wasn't allowed to attempt a single test. Then, he remembers that his mother gave him a letter of recommendation to help him join her old guild. At the time, Errol thought she was just being overprotective, but he now realizes that she knew he'd get rejected. As Errol decides to join his mom's guild, Lilia appears again, but he ignores her and leaves. As he walks through the city, Lilia keeps begging him to join her and save her guild. Errol continues refusing her, so Lilia offers to lick his boots to convince him. However, he leaves her in front of the disgusted townsfolk, and Lilia vows never to give up. After Errol finally finds the guild's location, Lilia catches up to him again. She tells him that he's welcome to join them and points to the massive headquarters. Errol wonders why her guild is so weak, despite being so big, and she reveals that they've lost their past glory. However, Lilia is confident that she can restore the Dragon Fang Guild, led by the Dual Swords King. At this name, Errol recalls that his mother was also in the same guild in her youth. He finally agrees to visit, so Lilia takes him inside and leads him to a seat. Suddenly, Lilia's drunk dad pops out from the sofa, and she gets angry at him. Lilia reminds him that the doctor prohibited him from drinking, and they don't have money for alcohol anyway. However, her dad doesn't care, and Errol realizes that he's the Dual Swords King. As Errol notices the man's missing arm, the man tells him to leave the guild since it's going to be finished soon. Lilia tries to stop her dad, but he ignores her and walks out. She tells Errol that her dad was one of the top swordsmen in Brea, but his career ended after he lost his arm. She thinks that Errol definitely won't join their shabby guild now, but he actually decides to join. Lilia thinks she's dreaming, but Errol reveals that the other guilds will reject him anyway. She happily shows him the guild contract, and he sits down to sign it. Once done, he hands the contract to Lilia, who finally learns that Errol doesn't have a class. Lilia thinks that Errol is pranking her, so he shows her his class certificate. After taking a closer look, Lilia calmly gets up and draws a sword before threatening to give Errol the deceased class if he doesn't immediately leave the guild. He asks why Lilia wants him to leave, and she angrily points out that she needs actual swordsmen for her guild. Recalling how Errol humiliated her, Lilia gets frustrated that she got bullied by a classless piece of trash. Then a woman named Ryaner enters the room, and Lilia quickly jumps into her arms. Lilia tells her that a classless jerk tried to scam her, and Ryaner instantly recognizes him. Errol feels confused that Ryaner knows him, so she tells him that they're from the same hometown. She reminds him that they sparred in their childhood, but Errol still doesn't remember her. Then Ryaner tells him they met 5 years ago, but Errol says that he would never have forgotten a beauty like her. The girls take him to the guild's training ground, and Lilia still feels surprised that Ryaner would fight a classless nobody. However, Ryaner admits that Errol is very powerful and feels determined to defeat him. Once both swordsmen get on the field, Lilia acts as the referee and starts the match. Ryaner begins with a twin slice, and Errol thinks he can easily stop it. However, the slices ignore Errol's attack and hit his body. He wonders how Ryaner got through, and she throws down her heavy sword. Ryaner explains that the sword is 5 times heavier than usual, so he can't counter her attack with the same technique. After she reveals that her brute swordsman class boosts her attack power, Errol feels shocked and blocks her attack. He praises Ryaner's incredible progress as she continues her onslaught. Errol steps back and admits that he'll lose if he continues facing her head-on. He wonders why Ryaner is exposing her secrets, but she says that it's worth it to defeat him. Then Errol tells her that she can't hit him with her speed, and she charges forward to punish him. Ryaner deflects Errol's sword and strikes at his body, but it vanishes into an afterimage. To Ryaner's shock, he appears behind her and strikes her neck. She wonders how he dodged her attack, but Errol reminds her that it was just a shadow. Knowing that the shadow skill is a supreme swordsman technique, Reincarnated is stunned. She tries attacking Errol again, but he dodges everything, saying that the technique is as easy as just moving really fast. Reincarnated feels insulted by Errol's simplified explanation, and he tells her that it took a lot of effort to master the technique. He vanishes and strikes her with another blow, but notices that his attacks aren't damaging her protection barrier. Reincarnated grins smugly and reveals that power swordsmen have boosted defense. She tries attacking again, but Errol sidesteps her and hits back with a counterattack. As he reveals he learned this counter from his mother, Reincarnated collapses in defeat. Watching the battle, Lilia feels shocked but announces Errol's victory. Reincarnated feels frustrated that she lost despite getting stronger, and Errol praises her for her skills. However, he points out that he's just stronger than her, and Reincarnated starts crying. Lilia quickly rushes to comfort her, angry that Errol made her cry. He feels confused why she's crying even though he praised her, and Reincarnated acts like she didn't cry before running back to the guild. Once she's inside, both he and Lilia hear her bawling about losing, even after all her training the last 5 years.